Welcome to another episode of Bet on T Craig. Not only am I here with the fantastic, amazing Chase Sloan, we also have the one and only, the example of the black family, the Benjamins.
Give it up, everybody. Give it up. We're already clapping. We're excited to be here.
How are you guys feeling today?
Feeling good.
Doing good?
Mm-hmm.
Doing good?
So, Thomas, Alyssa, we're excited to have you guys because absolutely this show, our mission is to build strong communities through strategic ownership of real estate and business ownership. And so we don't often in fact, I think you guys are the first family on the T-Craig, on Bet on T-Craig.
Oh,
Hey.
Black History.
in Black History
And
Month,
Black History Month.
as you said, yeah. Getting off the right start.
I love it. So one of the reasons that we did want to bring you guys on because last year we had a Close by Christmas challenge, and you guys were again the first couple to. I'm noticing a trend here.
Yeah.
Randy. I'm noticing a trend of first with these two. So just kicking it off, talk to us a little bit about, if you can go back to that time, the Close by Christmas challenge, and really what made you guys make the decision to not just buy a home, but to do it over the holidays and make that step.
Man, it was time. It was time, and when we first got together, we planned out our future and where we wanted to be, and so instead of trying to in our minds wait until the time is right, just follow the plan. And so it gets uncomfortable along the way, but yeah, it was just time to get out there and stop renting, have a bigger place and somewhere Maya could run around and we can have our own spaces and just stuff like that. So it was just that time. It was like everything was lining itself up to where it was time to get started.
Yeah. And I think we kind of saw like the writing on the wall. We were hearing about rent increasing the way it was, and it just no longer made sense to be renting when you could probably even save money, by just buckling down and going ahead and just getting it done,
Right.
Also, it was so many things that the apartment complex would do, and it was getting frustrating.
Yes.
That we had no control over. And when you're working with, the front office on certain things, and you kind of feel like, man, we grown.
Right.
I'm not trying to be doing all this kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So it helped us.
You just kind of graduate yourself.
Do you feel like?
I like how you said that, like you graduate yourself.
Yes.
You said something, Thomas, like when you first met, you planned out your future. Can you tell us a little bit about that, or what do you mean when you say that?
Yeah, around this time we start having children. Around this time, we're looking to get a home. And other plans that we haven't released to the public yet. But everything it's planned out. That way we're not just kind of shooting in the wind, in the dark.
Definitely.
So and it keeps us grounded, honest about our next move. So yeah, that was part of it. We said to ourselves that after we had to, I think we renewed our lease for like 6 months. That was around, when COVID hit. So we couldn't really be out searching at that time. So that kind of delayed our process. But yeah, it was all part of our plan.
Do you feel like it was more of like an emotional or a logical decision in making that move from apartment complexes to actually looking to purchase?
It definitely was logical. The emotional side that plays a role. It kind of pushed the fire under you to move a little faster. But it was a combination of both, but more so logical. At least on my end, it was.
Yeah, I think that we have a daughter. She was born while we were living in that apartment, and she's getting older. We wanted to have her to have space and not to have to worry about making noise. It's just like a lot of small, like micro things that you don't want to have to deal with navigating around,
right?
Just to avoid like doing what you're going to have to do anyway.
What's interesting is because, we often say logic makes you think and emotion makes you act. That we can have all of the statistical data type conversations with a person. However, it's not going to be until, like you said, that, you have something personal driving you. One of the things that we often hear, though, is that people feel more flexible through renting. Like they can pivot, they can move around. Was that ever a concern for you guys, or feeling like a home would lock you down, or
I don't think that, for me, I didn't feel that way. I thought, especially like when we first got married, we moved kind of like downtown, and it was like we want to have some fun and we want to, so that played a role in it. So that was nice. But I think that it was never a question that we were going to move into home ownership. We never felt like renting would be, because I don't even see renting as more flexible, like
Right.
financially. You understand that like when you're paying somebody else, they have to get a profit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not more financially flexible because it actually like limits your resources over time. But I think a home is more flexible. You have more outside space. You're not having different people moving in like in and out so quickly. You can actually get to know your neighbors and stuff like that. So um I think that renting is, it's just sometimes you have like a stepping stone, to kind of get your bearings, but just knowing that the intention is to move forward.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
So it wasn't something that you felt as if that it made more sense for you to move because you kind of felt as if there was more kind of like control and actually owning the home instead of having to continue to rent.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
just thinking, like, of course, like Thomas said, is we have this plan, right? And of course, plans, like, as your plans increase, your income has to increase, and you're just kind of thinking, like, okay, I can't sublease an apartment. I
Right.
can rent out a
A
home,
home. Yeah,
to
that's true.
transition into the next phase and all that stuff. So you kind of have to start thinking about like where your leverage is or who your leverage is going to. Is it going to like the person who actually owns the rental property, or is it going to like you and your family and your family's future?
Right.
Like where is that equity being built?
Mm-hmm.
I really like, because you guys are saying a couple things, whether it's, move to the next step or graduating in the process. Like, one is setting the expectation. Like, it doesn't just always happen at once, right? You don't always, like, after the wedding, have the baby, have the house, all this stuff. And I think that that's something that's important, that a lot of times we underestimate the power of slight yet significant steps. So, how did you guys, as a married couple, lean on each other just when it came to finding the house and decision making?
Um, it was a combination of a few things, like making sure all the credit was in the right place, and once we first got together, we already understood about we believed in each other as far as the word that we have, if committing to things
Mm-hmm.
and trusting that they're going to meet that commitment. And if something were to, chip away at it and discuss it and find out how we get back on track if that were to happen. So I don't know if that answers your question. The
Well,
second part that you said.
I mean, I probably don't remember the second part either. However, but no, just like as it relates to, because we talk
Yeah.
about like this preparation. So to your point, whether it was, building the credit or the saving, like realistically,
Yeah.
how long did it take for you guys to prepare to, okay, now we're ready?
6 months, a year.
Like 6 months, but I think as far as like going, so there's no starting point really, because going into it we're like in preparation mode, right? And so we've been married for 5 years, right? And so for me, so I think we actively started like looking and like, okay, what do we need?
That's
That's
what the
like
question
six
was.
months
Yeah.
right? But knowing that, okay, eventually like homeownership is a part of the plan, it's always in the back of your mind, like, okay, well, can I cut this, or me, like, I'm a very strategic person, and I'm a very like do what you can type person, right? So for me, I started saving like $5, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, okay, girl, you waste more than $5. You can save a little bit more, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's just like a continuous process. So it's never like, I don't like to be rushed. Like I don't want to feel like, oh, we only have 6 months to figure this out. When I could just be not going to Starbucks one day and putting it somewhere where I can't see it, and then by the time we're really ready, we can like look at what we have, and look at what we need from there. But it also is important. One thing that I found like to be important is like to just know what is really required, like
Right.
What do you mean?
So a lot of the times when you are looking at anything like a home, car, whatever, right? Even like a service, a medical service or something, if you're not careful, people will give you advice based on what they think that you can handle. And that can be based on what they see your situation as, right? Or what they assume your situation to be, right? Mm-hmm. But we are very like regimented, we're very strategic. So our situation might look like one thing because we're preparing for something bigger, right? But we have to be like aware of that. So when somebody is saying, oh, well, you could get this house over here, and then the neighborhood is crazy and the house is dilapidated. So you're not answering my question because I need to know how much I actually need to live how I intend to live. How that gets done, like, that's
That's up to us.
that's our problem. But you don't need to give me information that leads me somewhere where I'm not ultimately trying to be,
You can assume.
It's something I remember during our consultation even is because we always ask, ideally what price home are you looking in? And you shared your answer and you were like, and let me know if that's realistic. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really profound because, right, anybody can say a number, right? And of course, nobody wants to feel like they have to spend $1 million for what they're looking for. Right. And also sometimes I think that there's a missing conversation. Like, yeah, there are homes all over the place and for all over amounts. But like you said, what type of home are you looking to live in? Mm-hmm. What does that look like for you guys? So,
I mean, I think, and something that you also mentioned is the word actually being realistic, because it's so easy to not say become delusional, but thinking about, I see that I want this home, but then do you also ask yourself how much does it cost monthly to have that home? Mm-hmm. And do you not want to move into the home and then say be house poor because you thought, I love the home, paying these mortgage payments, and it's like, I don't love the home that much. Yeah, I don't love the home that much to be paying this type of payment. Yeah. So I think that, it's actually having that conversation and knowing like not only what is it that I want, but is this something that's within our budget? Mm-hmm. So I think that's a very like wholesome and it's a very strategic way to move and plan going about life.
Something I wanted to say earlier too. I kind of remember the second part of the question. So we agreed on like parts of town. That was important. Like, where do you want to live at?
Yes.
Considering, work commutes. That's, to me personally, it's not the major thing, but we want to be on certain sides and certain parts of town. And from there, what's possible there? If that doesn't work, what's, location number 2,
right?
Location number 3,
right?
Knowing that we're not gonna, have no plans on leaving the city, but we know that no matter where we choose, there's something that we can find that we'll love. We'll just make like somewhere else better that we couldn't necessarily be at. So part of that was like, okay, if we know we want to be on a particular side of town, look here, find out what's possible. And so that helped our process because we had things planned out. Like it wasn't just kind of like figure out here's the price of the home. Okay, where are these homes at? It could be anywhere. We're okay with it. No, we were like pretty intentional where we are. So that helped our whole process too.
And I think location is very important though, because it adds to clarity. Because then if you know where exactly you want to live, now you just have to plan backwards and say, okay, what is it going to take to actually live in that area? So I think that's very key as far as part of the process too.
And even like working with actually working with realtor, okay, you're going to need this much percentage down, right? Whatever house you're in, this is the down payment percentage that you're going to have, plus these extra things, right? And for me, I feel like sometimes, I don't know if it's scary to hear that number or you feel like, oh, well, I don't have that. But to me, I feel like that's the only way you understand what you need to have, So instead of being afraid of the number, like just tell me the number, right? If I say I want to live in River Oaks, then there's still a number. So regardless of who thinks it's possible or not, there's still a number to get to in order to meet that, realistically, And so if we get that number, then we can create a strategy to achieve that number, right? And in whatever time frame that is, that's like ours to decide. But just getting clarity on what you need instead of just like randomly saving or randomly hoping that somebody will say it's enough. you know.
Mhm.
Did you guys ever have like moments of limiting beliefs or like, oh my goodness, or doubt or anything like that? Or like, how did you, because that's something that's real too, right? Just in regards to scary numbers, whether it's the price of home, people, something common that we see now is like, oh, affordability is out the window and homes are so expensive, right? And yet people buy and sell homes every day still, right? So that there is a path in the math, as we always say it. Yet how did you guys handle like those moments, people projecting that on you, or
It- um, I think at the end of the day, we knew we had time on our side to an extent. So, for example, if we know there's been times throughout the process it gets frustrating, things don't work out your way, and so I knew we're in an apartment, so it was like this is worst case scenario. We have to extend another 6 months at worst. You know what I mean? Or if we're on month to month, we can do month to month.
Right.
Would it be smarter to do month to month for 3 months or 6 months at a lower rate and just look again, and in that time frame build up to where we can maybe be in a better position the second time, third time around. So it also helped, like, okay, pushing the envelope, like, hey, this is what we really want, and we'll just walk away. And when you do that, a lot of the times, some of the builders or those who are showing the actual home in the neighborhood, they'll figure things out. Because they don't want, because they're trying to make a sale or they're trying to help their numbers too. So if they say, okay, you're this close, but since here on this date we say you couldn't do it, and then you're willing to walk away, well, wait, let me figure something out.
Yeah.
And that happens. So we had leverage on both ends.
It's kind of like the car dealership, right?
Yeah.
Like if you go, they say if you go to a car dealership and tell them what you're willing to spend,
Yeah.
and they don't match that number, it's when you make that decision, like, okay, thanks for the conversation. And then they're like, well, wait a minute, let me go talk to my manager, or let me go talk to them. And that's why I believe it's so good to have a team of professionals working on your behalf, because like you said, the goal is for everybody to be able to accomplish the one thing, right? The builder wants to sell the house, the realtor wants to help you get in the house, you guys want to own the house, the children want to play in the house. There's a common goal for everybody. Absolutely. So
no, I think and it just goes to show, like, not say also what's possible, but I think, to the point of limiting beliefs, it's like a lot of people question if they have the potential to do it or the capacity to do it, but yet don't actually take that first step into making it happen. And so I think when we had the more social proof we're able to show, I think it then leads to giving people more examples of what it is that they can do and not what they can't.
It's interesting. So at certain points, that, okay, you want to build your credit, so you have to maybe stop using credit cards. But you may have been accustomed to using credit cards. So if you say, hey, we want to go out to eat, I just put on a card and just pay it off next month. So at that point, you may not think to yourself, okay, if I don't have these, will I be able to still maintain a particular lifestyle? And once you kind of push yourself to a certain extent, you'll start to see how you can rise to the occasion. So, for example, it was like, all right, in order to make sure our credit is where it should be at, we can't use any more credit cards. So cold turkey, just stop using them. And then you're thinking to yourself, well, can we still do these things? And you'll find ways to make it happen. It's like the universe or your mind rearranges itself to make sure these circumstances come up, or maybe at your job, a particular opportunity came up or a bonus comes up. And it's like almost like magic, but it
was intentional.
It's intentional.
Because it reminds me actually of Rich Dad Poor Dad, when it says that, the rich dad wasn't going to pay the sons, because they're like, I'm not paying you because you need to figure out different ways to make money. And so in real time, you're like, I have to think differently because it's what's required of me.
Your actions align with that. The way you process information, it forces you to kind of it's like evolving. It forces you to kind of keep moving, or you don't.
And I think you have to. I think that's the key. That's the secret. Is that is what pushes you, right? So like if you are reaching, first of all, Thomas and I, like our marriage story, I guess, is like its own thing of battling like limiting beliefs, right? Like we were very intentional. We weren't dating for a long time. We knew what we wanted to do. And so we already had to deal with, people's perceptions
Opinions,
of that, opinions. And so early on you realize like, okay, we not listening to that really. Like we can, it's almost like, it's like nails on a chalkboard now. You don't even want to listen to it, right? You're just kind of turning the other way, right? And so once you get past that, you're just moving and like you're looking for the problem. Because once we look, this is how I feel. You got realtors involved. You got people in the homes showing who are involved.
Yeah.
Like if we go down, we all going down. So who gonna fix it?
Who's gonna fix it? And I like
So
that.
just moving forward, you know, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, because everything is evidence, and I think you grow into the environment, conversations, and situations around you. You know, I remember anything I've ever done in life was scary. Like, I don't know if I can live out of state. I don't know if I can have an apartment. I don't know if I can own a car, right? Like, any first time to anything feels scary. And I remember once my mom once said, she was like, you just grow into it. She was like, you just learn how to do it. And I've really, like I said, I remember the first time I got my apartment. Now, granted, you know, it was a lot less than what apartments are now, but it was a big deal to me. And I was like, am I going to have an additional XYZ?
Yeah.
And you do it.
Mhm.
You just somehow, it's not magic. I mean, it is intention.
Work, yeah.
Yet you do just, you grow, you graduate.
But putting yourself in the, like, you would have never had that. The question is, like, or the key or the clue is that question. How am I going to do that? Right? Like, and when you don't put yourself in that position, you might not even like have the presence of thought to even ask yourself that question. You know, like you might say, how am I going to do this? Oh, I'll just work some extra shifts. Now you in there, right? And now you're like, no, that wasn't a plan. Like, how am I going to do this? I need an actual plan, you know. But putting yourself in the situation is the catalyst, and I think that's for everything. I think putting yourself in the situation is always going to be the catalyst, you know. And that fear is like, the way I see it is like that fear is like, okay, you're almost there, right? Like you did all the scary stuff already, right? You should have been, right? Like don't be trying to buy a house and you know like you got warrants and you got drug money and all that stuff. But if you're a good person,
legal,
and you're being
ethical, and
honest,
moral,
I can't use this cash.
right?
I can't
use this cash. That's how, and that's exactly how it
You
is
know?
too. Can't use this cash.
And so it's like a roller coaster. You're coming up, right? And each up is like a stair step. And then you at the top of the roller coaster, but you already up here now. The only next thing to do is to go, you know? And so once you go, everything starts to kind of just get built from the momentum that you built going up. You know?
So part of it is making the decision to get in the roller coaster.
Right.
A lot of people, paralysis by analysis. Too worried about what it could look like, but you don't even know what it could. You don't even know what it could be,
and you don't even know how it works, right? And so you sit here and you're like, how am I going to get this done? You don't even know how it works. Now, you know you're going to have to hire somebody. You know you're going to have to work with people, and just by virtue of this being their job, like, you know that they're going to have insight that you don't, you know? And so you're spinning your wheels because you don't even know how the process like actually works. And I think if I could like segue to like just a little quick story.
No, you're good.
When I graduated high school, right? I was so I was supposed to go to Howard, right? A lot of stuff happened, and I was ended up having to go to TSU, right? It was like financial aid stuff or whatever. And so, anyways, we went to TSU, went to the financial aid office, and I think it had something to do with the Parent Plus loan, and we didn't get approved because our parents made too much or whatever. And we're at the office, and we're like, okay. And as we're leaving, somebody from the office says, hey, if you don't get approved for that, then when your daughter approves, when your daughter applies, she'll automatically get approved. That's just how it works, right? There was no way we would have known that if we didn't go into there, right? That's like insider information. It's like insight, right? And I found that happens in every single situation that you are like, I don't know how I'm going to get this done. If you walk in it, there's somebody who knows there's always a workaround. Every single, I promise there's always a workaround. So you have to go with as much information and energy and understanding as you can, like actually be trying. But when you hit that hiccup, there's somebody who's going to tap you on the shoulder and
Somebody
say, hey,
knows.
go
Yeah,
around the
somebody
back.
knows.
Because a lot of it's energy matching, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think sometimes a lot of people talk about gatekeeping and, oh, people don't want to give you information. I don't think that's the case at all. Most people, in my experience, are happy to help and happy, just like you said, no matter what you're talking about. People, I believe a key to wealth is philanthropy. The core of that is giving back. And so anybody that has that type of mindset in their life, you notice evidence of them giving back, but you have to show up. Like, people can't, I'll have no reason to tell you that there's another way to apply for this thing if I don't even know that you're applying for this thing.
Right.
Like,
But
how would I know? How would I know what help that you need if you don't come to the financial aid office?
And to your point of, like, shooting, I do think that it's the way I always like to look at it is like keep shooting, because if nobody actually sees you like willing to then put in the work, it's like, why should I then look to be of assistance to you? You're not even betting on yourself, but you expect me to bet on you. So I do like that like you got to be willing to show up for yourself, because if you don't show up for yourself, why should someone else pull you along, drag you along?
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that.
It's like you have to reach up. Like, you have to reach up for help. Like, you can't just want everybody to be like pulling your their weight. Like, did you try? What did you try?
Or what did you do?
It's
like,
what did you do?
What did you do
what
first?
Did you do
before I look to come and help you?
Right. I got things
real.
to do too.
It's real.
I'm not leaving the financial aid office to knock on doors to say, hey, do you know the secret?
Yeah.
But if I got to,
right.
But if I got to, I'm gonna knock them.
Well, it's like consistently marketing and promoting yourself. Like,
Yeah,
you see
very true.
commercials, the same commercial for years. The same billboard might have been up there for years, or on the radio. And even if you may not utilize it now, it's in the back of your mind somewhere. So when you first think of whatever they're offering, that's the first thing that comes to your mind, because they were consistent. So keep doing what you're doing, because somebody, it's imprinted with somebody. And that's all you need is that one big break, or just consistently people pouring in from seeing that you have been consistent with yourself.
I think about it like, not say like the McDonald's kind of framework, but it's almost like it's like they keep on, just, you see their ads or you hear their commercials all the time. So it's not like, I may not like McDonald's, but because you hear about it, you're like, well, they're going to be one of the, I get some.
They got mind share, market share.
They got good fries,
Yeah.
I think, just for no reason, but because they just keep on putting themselves in your face. So it's aggressive marketing.
That's right.
Guerrilla tactics.
So we talked about the roller coaster. You guys went over the roller coaster, did the big drop. What is life after closing like for you guys, and what does that look like? How has that prepared you, I guess, for the next steps for you? So it's 3 questions. Life after closing, what's changed, if anything, and then what advice would you give to the person that's watching this episode, the couple that's watching this episode that needs to get on the roller coaster?
First off, relief. It's like, okay. Because you've already established that you can maintain it before you get there. That's the first thing. Like, make sure you can maintain things. But you'll learn along the way. Some stuff like, I didn't know about it, I didn't think about that. So it's relief. That's first and foremost. And I think it prepares you for the next step, because you know what to look forward to, the pitfalls, the questions to ask, certain things to look out for. You do your walkthroughs for a home, for example, and you look at everything you possibly can, but it's not until you get in there, you see the little small wear and tear, like, well, I know next time to ask these questions along with the walkthrough, because you're a little more seasoned.
Right.
And, depending on the builder that you have, they'll help you, but they're not going to tell you everything, whether it's because they haven't thought about it or they might not want to do the extra work, whatever the case is. But they'll know how, seasoned you are, your experience, once you start asking the proper questions. So the relief, the second time around, you're more, you've adapted to the changes. And there was a third part, but I don't remember.
No, I
forgot.
Do you remember the third
advice? Advice for
what kind of goes in? So
next
I think that kind of goes the same same way.
Yeah, I think relief is a great word for it. I think that once you get so now you feel like you have a more solid foundation, right? And then now we're starting to think about things that we can have, like community things that we can do, and things that we can having family and friends over, and just things that we didn't really think about, like we were in a smaller space because we just didn't have the capacity, right? And so now you can expand like your vision, like because everybody has, I think every individual probably has this idea of like, what they would love to live like, or what they would love like to life to be like, right? And it's like once you get into a little bit of bigger space, a little bit of a bigger achievement, okay, now we can say, oh, well, now I can see how I can get to this point, right? And then it's just kind of like piggybacking off of each other, right? And so I think that just being in the house, it gives us more space. We can think about what we want to do, and we can think about what we want to do next. So I would, for advice, I would say do it, and then um, just realize that you're a human being, right? Like you're a real life person. You're not a 2D person on the television screen or a device. And understand that what you think is supposed to look like isn't it might actually be just actors, right? So don't move in the house and then ruin your credit because you feel like you have to have it decked out before you can let anybody come by, right?
Wow.
Or anything. Don't like make it don't make it something that you have to suffer because your imagination or whatever you've seen tells you, or whatever people say, right, tells you that you're supposed to be okay. You just made this big accomplishment, now you got to rush to the next thing, right? Like you have to decide whether you're going to chase the carrot or whether you're going to like build a life.
I'd also say, to add on to that point, is view it also is in our minds, it's an investment too. So it's your first big, one of your first big investments. So, take care of it the way that
you would take care of any other investment
that you appreciate
skin in the game,
right? And also create those memories, especially if you have a family. So make sure along the way that you create those memories. Look at it as your investment. So take care of it that way. And like Alyssa says, don't like rush to make sure it's all decked out, things like that, because you're not renting it, so you're not there for this small amount of time. That's your home,
right?
Yeah. I think it's so interesting when you said that sometimes the carrot you're chasing are actors, and a good friend, and he coaches and does all this stuff, and he was sharing a clip that he went to go look at something on Instagram, and he was like, I did a little more investigating, and it was like, and none of it was real, it was all fake, it was like fake. And I was like, true story. I said, before I actually bought a home, I bought a home on TV, and seriously, they reached out to the office. They somebody I went to high school with was filming a show. They needed people to come to the open house. So me and my colleague, we went to the open house, and we're just walking around the open house, and then they're doing the camera, and they're like, what did you guys think of the house? And we're like, yeah, it's great, it's cool, everything's great. Didn't think anything of it, went on about our day. Couple months later, the show aired, and my dad called me and was like, when did you buy a house in Montrose? And I was like, what are you talking about? And I look at the show, the way they had presented it, it was like I was married, we had bought this home.
That's wild.
It was
You was talking about that the other day.
It was all make believe. Like, I don't even think the house was for sale, honestly. I think it was like a prop, right? And it's like a lot of times people compare themselves to television, entertainment.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is. It's entertainment. And then they delay making the necessary choices and decisions for their own personal life because they are being hoodwinked, bamboozled,
and
led astray
by the media.
Whole script. The whole script.
Just so that you can buy what you can afford, which is like a vase, a $100 vase, and that's why you can't buy a house because you're trying to buy
the $100
stuff
vase
from the TV.
I think something that I've also learned the last couple of even months or even years really is that when you talk about like real people, real contracts, and these are real deals being done. So it's like don't play. It's like don't look to play in this game, or like like there's a cost for waiting, there's a cost for indecision, and there's a cost for making a decision.
Absolutely.
So then decide where you want to be at. So I think about that a lot.
No matter what.
It's gonna cost you no matter what.
You say it all the time, like life continues anyway. Listen, you said it all the time, like whether it takes a year or not, the year happens.
Right.
Like I think about, and the thing is for me, like personally, is that a lot of people say, man, you're in your 20s, you have time, and it's like as those years go by, you start thinking, something's not clicking. I don't have as much time as people are saying I do.
You know what's crazy is that's the beautiful thing about time is when you're younger, you can't remember as far back, right? In a sense, because you haven't lived long enough. And then as you get older, you can start pulling things from the past and say, well, this is how it affected my life. And I see how it is for me now. And then once you get to that point, then you can start, having your foresight to say, well, I know now the things that I do now will affect my future. Yeah. And I know that comes fast as we say time flies. Imagine that, when you're in elementary school, middle school, even high school, thinking about what 5 or 10 years looks like. That's like a long time to somebody at that point. But now as we're, 30s, 40s, 50s in this range, we know that's not a lot of time. Like 5 or 10 years zooms by like quick.
Yeah.
We're
Because
coming up on 6 years now of marriage. It doesn't seem like 6 years.
I think that's crazy, right? But like to your point, like if I was to ask Amaya 5 years from now, she's like, "That's my whole life."
That's her whole life.
She can't even. And I think that you said something, Randy, because like people will be like, "You have all this time, right?" And to me, that's what a limiting belief sounds like, right? A limiting belief can sound like, "Oh, well, maybe you should just wait," da da da. But also, somebody saying you have all this time is almost like the equivalent, right? And it's based on maybe what they can what they have, what they've achieved, what they think about. But how can somebody tell you that you have all of this time? Like when they don't know where your end destination is, right? Like the home is not. I mean, it might be, but if the home is not your final destination and it's just like an asset that you're picking up along the way,
right?
Then how can you listen to? I just feel like you have to be very
it's like self-aware,
self-aware of what you actually want. Like that takes and I'm talking about like as individuals, and then as couple, and then as family, and all of these things, because it's going to take alignment. You're going to have to like reach up to what you want. And so people saying you have all of this time, it's comfortable, right? It's easily used as an excuse,
right?
But if you wait too long and now it's too late, can you go back to that person and say, you gave me the wrong information? They're gonna be like, you're wrong.
And I
think they are gonna say that.
That's exactly what they're gonna say.
But I think in 2020, I remember this video I watched. It was someone reflecting on Chadwick Boseman and Kobe Bryant, and how they had a project they wanted to work on. These two outstanding, phenomenal individuals who have created amazing careers in production. And then Kobe was like, "Oh man, I'm so busy right now. We'll get to it in 2 years." And then it's crazy how you see, Kobe passes away, and then in that short 2 years, it was Kobe or Chadwick Boseman passes away. And so now that great, phenomenal, outstanding, one in a lifetime project they would have created will never be, seen.
So I say you never know the day or the time, right? So it's like you don't know, so you can't really bet on that,
Yeah. So how do you guys qualify who you listen to? As you guys have, you mentioned individual, as a couple, as a family. So who do you guys model after, and how do you filter out the noise when there's so much information being just spewed everywhere?
For me, I think that it starts with understanding what you want, right? And so like if you have a roadmap, you've created a roadmap for yourself. You don't necessarily know how you're going to get there, but you're working it. You're working it from the beginning. You're not trying to skip steps, right? So now as you're going, you run into a block. You need help for that one thing, right? I don't think anybody can give you advice necessarily to guide you through the whole journey,
right?
Because your journey is like, I like to say, like, your brain is your own universe, right? Like you're the only person who has experienced everything that you've experienced moving forward. So it's hard for somebody to give you advice for where to go next, right? But if it's like, I need help with a specific thing, right? Then I'm gonna listen to people who I feel like are qualified in that in that area, know. Now that person might give me bad advice for the next step. Right. But I didn't come to you for that, and I don't get confused because I have a roadmap.
Yeah.
So I take, the advice. I'm appreciative. I give fair exchange for reciprocal, but then that might be the only place that we intersect, and then we continue on our individual journeys,
They say like there are different levels, different people, mentors that you should have in your life, one for physical,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
spiritual,
say. Yeah.
business. And it's kind of like, yeah, I may look at this person for their business acumen, right? From a relationship, family standpoint, I may not admire anything that they do, and that's okay. Like one person, I think sometimes we fall to that, right? Like we expect one person to be all things for us, and it's like, no, this this is what they're great at, and accept them for that, and then find other people, right? Like you shouldn't put all of your eggs in one basket, as they say, not in anything you're trying to do, not in anyone you're trying to build a relationship with.
Yeah, for me, it's just as you just said now, um, depending on what they're doing and what I'm trying to accomplish. Like I look at my peers, I'm really not into people that I see on television and trying to do what they're doing or whatever have you. That's not my particular thing because I view everybody as humans, and so I don't care how much money you make, how many cameras are in front of you, how many people know your name. Like you're not living longer than somebody else that doesn't have that,
Very
or
true.
you're not necessarily, you can't avoid certain illnesses or being criticized like anybody else can. So I'm looking at people that I've grown up with, people that I admire that, like you say, if it may be in business, it may be in physicality,
Yeah.
health. So it just depends, So if I see somebody that's been consistent with whatever area that I'm trying to get to, and I can reach out and touch them, then it's like, hey, I got some questions about you about this. And it goes both ways because people reach out to us about certain things that they may see us, at a particular place they want to get to. So yeah, I'm taking advice from those who I can reach out and touch.
Right.
And if you see videos and it might be a celebrity or entertainer that puts a nugget out there, and I'm like, oh, that's good to know. I can try that. But I'm not like, first thing I'm doing is pulling up the richest people in the world, or because people will say certain things, and just because they're rich, all of a sudden that's like law, and it's like, yeah, but I don't really believe that. That doesn't work for me. So yeah, they may have good information on how to be a coachable in interviews or something like that, but when it comes to building relationships with people, if their track record is terrible, so why would I listen to them because they are a billionaire or a millionaire? Like that doesn't match.
And I would say, like Thomas, that's one thing. He is like extremely excellent at building and maintaining relationships. Like he'll reach out to somebody who like he went to school with in sixth grade just to be like, hey, I'm just checking up on you. Like he's been in, like, we were in Austin once, right? He was like, I think my friend works for this company, right? He hadn't spoken to this dude since high school. Like we're almost 40, right? He called around to every single location to try to find his friend.
Wow.
And but this is like a constant in his life, like this is from just the time that we've been married. Like he has literally found people, and so I think that he's always a good person to bounce like ideas off of because he comes from a genuine place, and I think that's the benefit of having a partner in the house that you like, y'all are on the same page, because like I don't need to say it in the most proper understanding way. Like sometimes I could just come to him and tell him what's upsetting me.
It's a family show.
Right. And he can see it from a different perspective, and he can offer, did you try these things? We'll just reach out to them, you know what I'm saying? And then I'll be like, I did. He'd be like, okay, well, you did what you could, but I know that in what he is giving me is something that's going to make our family and us strong and keep us protected, as opposed to me in a phone not knowing what the strategy was behind the video that I'm watching.
Right. I think that's all very powerful, and I think on the topic of, you guys mentioned marriage, I have a few questions that I'd like to ask you guys. And you can feel free. You can feel free. You can feel free to answer the questions, or if you don't,
here we go.
Welcome to the hot couch.
It's all right, the hot seat. The hot seat. Don't worry. It's only 5 questions. It's only five. Only 5. The first one being, what made you want to get married?
Wow, that's a good question. Part of it is, legacy, having somebody. So it makes life, not only say easier, but manageable.
Mhm.
Building a family. I wanted a family first and foremost. So to me, in my mind, no family without a marriage. So that was kind of an easy decision to make as far as me making my mind up to say I want to be married. I grew up, in a two-parent household, so I'm used to seeing that. So it's just that the dynamic of, having somebody to spend your life with, uh, that can match your goals and your aspirations, that can push you to be better, that makes life, in my opinion, more manageable. So that's my short answer.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
I think that, again, like he said, you have these ideas that you want, you have this vision for your life, and you want to be married, and you want to have children, and you want to have it in a specific way, and so I knew that I always wanted to be married, and I knew that, like, I just have certain ideas. And I think one thing that I love about the way I think is, like, you cannot make me believe something that I think is less than what I can achieve is what I should go after, And so, like, I think that when we got together, so I always knew I wanted to be married. I always knew I wanted to have children, and I wanted to do it in that order. And so when I was dating for marriage, we had that like on our first date. We sat outside, and I was like,
Wait a minute.
This is
Wait a
what it
minute.
is.
So
This is what it is.
I was like,
so y'all had skipped past all of the
but see,
whatever
why?
people are talking about, because that's you're saying you had. Are you like literally saying that you had?
I'm literally saying we went.
Yeah, dating
we
with
had
intent.
a date.
Yeah, dating with intent.
What was your first
After the
date?
date-
I mean, I need understanding. So,
We went fishing, right?
hi, my name is
Wow.
Thomas. Hi, my name's Alyssa. And I
Well-
want to be married. Like, what does help us understand?
Well,
Because Randy's taking notes, so clearly
Right.
he's trying to
I just want to
understand.
understand. I just want to understand.
this is
I
the
just want to
official
understand.
story. This official story is, she was scoping me out.
Got it.
You know what I'm
got
saying?
It, got it, got it.
And there were people that we are mutual friends.
Yeah.
I'll give you your moment.
Thank you.
Please,
Well,
Thomas, tell us how this happened.
all right, so that is partly true. That's partly true. Absolutely. You have to admit that's partly true.
That's partly
She see me
true.
waiting to water Hurricane Harbor. She's like, oh, who is that guy?
I did say
so-
that. Yeah.
But it's funny because I made a post about our story and kind of how it worked. But we had mutual friends. We hadn't formally met at that point. But we had mutual friends, and we met through social media. And I love the fact that it was two strangers in a sense, but we just knew people that we both held in higher regard. So it wasn't like, just random people that we knew.
Right.
So that helped along the way. But so I reached out, I was in a relationship. We had broken up, and then so I reached out. So beforehand, we hadn't known each other at all. So reached out, and it was just, hey, I want to get to know you, I think you're attractive, and great energy, things like that. And so it was like, yeah, so cool, bet. I'm in the door, I'm there. So, but on our first date, it was a serious conversation. It wasn't, of course you get to know people and you get to understanding, we had phone conversations, and so we understood what we were looking for. But when you
Right.
get in front of somebody, you
It's a
get to
little
feel the
different.
energy,
Yeah,
and like what they really feel about things. So it was those important questions, children, what do you expect out of life, the goals you have, and you start to fill out the type of character somebody has. And to me, like, those important things let you know that no matter what happens in life, you trust. There's a level of trust. You take risk. So a lot of people, in my opinion, they want no risk. Like, it has to be like everything needs to be perfect no matter what.
Yeah.
And the foundation is what's important to me. So person with character, we both have similar spiritual understanding of things, a mother and father in our lives, that are grounded, not criminals, so that we're not concerned with the trustworthy part of it. And so whatever happens along the way, as long as that person is staying true to themselves, then we know we can work through it. And it's important for me to give somebody the opportunity to experience life and what it offers. And you have ups and downs just like I do. So things happen in your life and you're like, well, I didn't expect this to happen, but I would trust that you're going to make the right choice as you've been doing.
I like that.
Yeah, that's Mine's a short answer.
Did you ever have because if you guys are asking like these questions, sometimes people will say what did they say? Like a mask, like a representative. A representative. Do you
No.
ever feel like you were well, of course that's the representative putting on their best foot forward with these questions?
See, I don't think so, and I think that's the catch-22 in this idea that you're going to date somebody long enough to
See
uncover
who
who
they
they
really
really
are.
are, right? Because it's like, well, what if something really bad happens to them and they just can't handle it because it's the first time this thing ever happened? Are you saying that's who I really am when we've been dating for 10 years? Oh, you got me. Like no, like the journey, like marriage is a journey, right? And I feel like, and maybe that's just my approach to most things, is that like if you understand what the end is, right, and what the journey looks like, then yeah, you make sure that you have like these basic understandings, right? Like even like we talked about how we intend to discipline children, like all of that, like because those are deal breakers for the both of us, right? And so once you understand that, like you have to understand that there's nothing that you can get out of the way before you before you decide to take a responsibility, right? Marriage is literally just a journey together, and you either decide or you don't. But I want to get back to how we met. Okay.
Take two.
Take two. So no, so I think that really is his side of the story.
His side of the story.
But we do have mutual friends, right? And so I was like, I'm ready to get married. So I started like cooking on Facebook and stuff like that, posting my food and stuff. And like his friend
couldn't say no to the food.
Who was like our mutual friend who I went to college with, he was like, man, he would inbox me. He was like, man, I sure know somebody who would love that.
I didn't know about that. See, I didn't know about that.
All right.
Get better friends.
Get better friends.
No, for real.
Get married friends.
Get married friends.
Get married friends. Get better friends.
Yes.
Get friends that will make introductions.
Yes.
Only high quality people.
Listen. Highly intentional people, and then
like that,
be honest. Like I feel like for me, like I said, everybody's on their own journey, and then like you mix, you meet up with who you need to meet up. And I was on a dating for marriage journey. I was like, I am dating for marriage only. I wasn't like aggressive. I wasn't like, what you gonna do for me? You want to go to Starbucks? We went fishing on our first date, But he knew that, right? It wasn't something I was trying to sneak up on him. I wasn't trying to like slide it in there, because I feel like anything that you do with a spirit of manipulation, like you deserve whatever comes back to you from
Very
that.
True.
And so yeah, we were just very upfront and honest, and I think that just set a foundation. So we understand like, okay, but are we still doing this? We have something to go back to, like, but we're still doing this though, right? And it kind of holds both of us accountable through the journey, know?
That's very real. And I think so. I think this is gonna be the last question. But out of the 5, so don't worry, I'm still going.
I'm about to say like you had 5.
No. So look. So the question is the Black family nucleus and why it's important.
I think I made a point recently about we go through like these cycles. And I think right now, as we speak today, we're in like this cycle of like, and let me say this first. I get it. We have family. Like, I call my brothers, man, that's my brother right there. Like, that's family. Or I go somewhere amongst Black folks I don't even know. Yeah, we family here. I get it. But realistic, like on a very, very literal level, creating that family nucleus, to me, is like the birth of a nation, right? Like it starts with strong families. Because there's a lot that you learn about humans and about experiences and people from a very intimate, up close and personal level. And from there, you know how to handle situations with the quote unquote strangers. You can kind of understand, well, we know in households, these things happen. And I know you've experienced it because you have a family or something similar. So it's representation. Amaya, she's going to see things through the lens of the Black family, the nuclear Black family. And of course, cousins that grow up like in Black households. That's like additional siblings.
Right.
It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, having, I guess, the experience to see both parents around each other all the time, the ups and downs of life. How do you handle stress in the same household without the splintering? I think it's extremely important with that representation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think my mission in life is like centered around restoring Black families and like um, understanding, helping to teach the importance and why it works and why it's important, And I think that life is hard, and we're not supposed to be doing a life alone. And we need to do life with people who are just as invested as we are. So I think it's important to recognize that it's an asset. Like right when we got married, you know, right after we got married, I think maybe that same week, somebody who had worked with Thomas for years said, "Hey, there's a better position at this other place." And I think that was initiated because that's a man saying, "Hey, you got a family now. I know you're going to need more."
Yeah.
Right? So it like opens doors and opportunities, but farther than that, I think that Chase, I speak about it a lot about expanding like your time, expanding like how much time you're thinking about, right? So we talk as a community, we talk a lot about breaking generational curses, but a lot of those generational curses are byproducts of not having enough time, right? And when you're an individual, just like with anything else, like if you pay for something in a pack, it's going to be cheaper than if you pay for it individually, right?
Mhm.
So as an individual, your life literally costs more,
Mhm.
and then you're trying to balance everything by yourself, right? And so now you have all this stress on top of you, and you're trying to like break curses and stuff. It's just not
By yourself.
logical.
Yeah,
by
by
yourself.
yourself.
You're exhausted.
Yeah.
You're a human being, and
Mhm.
like I think our human brains are so complex that we really don't believe that we're animals like that have systems that
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
or break down, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that we have to start thinking in family terms, right? And I think that makes things easier too, because
Right.
if the work that you're doing is not because you want to be able to go to this restaurant and spend $300 on brunch so that you can post it, but your goal is to make sure that your child gets just that little bit more of a head start, right?
Yeah.
In starting their life and starting their family, right? That's a generation, right?
Mhm.
And then you move forward, and then that's a generation, right? And so, whatever situation that you're in, number one, is that your generational curse or success, the situation that you're in now, and is that what you want to pass? Is that the ideal that you want to pass down, right?
Right.
So maybe you don't ever get the ranch house on 53 acres with the big this and the big that and the money and the cars and all that stuff, right? But if you can get the family, why don't you just get that now?
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
And then maybe the next generation has a better chance because they've seen how a family works from the inside and not just from watching other families,
TV.
Watching
from
television.
TV, which is entertainment. It's not real.
It's not real. It's kind of like, that quote, "I am my ancestors' wildest dreams." And when you
Mhm.
hear that and you hear about, like you said, number one, a few things that stood out. When you have something to role model, something my parents said to us was like, when you're not used to seeing families work through resolution, that's where cutting people off comes from.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because you haven't seen a healthy environment that's like, I remember my mom once said, there's no covenant, there's no covering without covenant. It's like, so the reason why you get fell into these relationships is because y'all can leave.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Every
That is
time you get
true.
upset,
Right.
you're like, I'm done, right?
That's true.
And
That
yeah,
is
you
true.
can get a divorce, and yeah, there are always different type of outs, but it makes it that much harder,
Mhm.
right? It's no different than a house, right? Like nobody
committed
has to
to
do
it.
anything,
Mhm.
but then you have this foreclosure that follows you, right?
Mhm.
You have this. And so I love that you said that one, it's modeling of what it is, and then really deciding, okay, so what does this nation that we're looking to create look like? And what is the rhetoric that we're promoting versus the action that we're taking?
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
it and it reminds me of something I wanted to say way earlier about our process, we don't run away from the commitment. And so when we chose to say it's time to get our home, we were committed to that. So we do everything necessary to make sure that gets accomplished. So part of, the marriage is being committed along the way. And like I say, you have ups and downs and stressful days. And, like I say frequently now, like whenever you can see a storm coming, a literal storm, I know in the world and in life, I say, okay, we're about to go through a storm, because things just start happening. Like, like they say, when it rains, it pours. So it could be at work, something happened, way home, something happens, you get home, your child is like driving you crazy, and you say, okay, I know a storm is coming. So let's just go weather this storm, because the sun's going to come back up. So, it's comparing the outside world to the inside world. So, but you're staying committed to the process,
And I think it goes back to a quote by Jordan Peterson, is that it's like, are we actually taking the phrase "till death do us part" seriously?
Right.
Somebody just said it used to go from to death do us part to I done got mad or something like that. Like, that's time to go. I done got mad.
Meet him out here.
I got mad, real mad. Michael Jackson.
I got mad. I got
Love
him
it.
out of here. Yeah.
I love it. So, well, this has been an incredible conversation. Thomas and Alyssa, we just want to extend our gratitude just for your time. Thank you so much just for blessing the set and coming on the show. Randy, of course, we're always going to keep the conversations going. So you guys be sure to like, subscribe, share this with someone you know, and maybe even someone you don't. And we'll see you guys next week.
Let's get it.